You all know what is collegium, right? ये तो मालूम ही है, सुप्रीम कोर्ट जजमेंट जजेस के लिए आता है. अब बात हो रही है कि इनके लिए कैसे आता है, वेयर डज इट हेल्प देम. तो इसमें लिखो, असल में लास्ट ईयर किसी ने सुप्रीम कोर्ट में दे पुट अ पिटिशन दैट ईसी शुड आल्सो बी हैविंग, to select EC there should be a collegium system. So write it, a petition was filed in Supreme Court for an independent collegium. An independent collegium for the appointment of election commission. For the appointment of election commission. It's a constitutional body, right? Given in Article 324. अब इसमें दो चीजें हैं 324 में. There is this Article 324 clause 2, and then you have Article 324 clause 5. Okay. How are they two different? Please write this, that Article 324 clause 5 empowers the parliament to make laws to regulate the terms and conditions of EC. So Parliament passed a law of Election Commission. Parliament passed a law. Parliament passed a law named as Election Commission ऐसे लिखना ब्रैकेट डाल के, Election Commission conditions of service and transaction of business. Conditions of service and transactions of business Act 1991. Okay. Again, there was a lot of politics that went into it. It is said that EC was, after TN session, EC was being very harsh on the ruling party. That is why this act was passed, wherein the numbers were increased from 1 to 3. Earlier, there was just one chief election commission. Now, there is not just one chief election commissioners, but 2 other election commissioners who would aid and advise him. In case there is a conflict, majority would be there. Okay, so alone CEC cannot do anything. There are 2 other people also. Total 3 people are there. So that is how this act was passed. Okay, so write this act regulates the procedure for the transaction of business by the ECI. Transaction of business by the ECI. So see, the constitutional provision is there. Okay, one we have seen. Now there is another one. ये भी तो है. Act was passed pursuing which article? 324 class 5. But this provision is also there, which has not been used. Now, what is this provision? Please write 324 clause 2 says that the president with aid and advice of the Union Council of Ministers appoint ECs, including the CEC. Got it? You see, this one has not happened. 324 2 per law नहीं बना है, 322 4 5 per law बना है. Got it? Now, these are the constitutional provisions for EC. That this is how it should be. This is how conduct of business. Parliament has already passed a law. Now the Law Commission. All of you have written it. Law Commission, you all know what it does. Change the para and write the Law Commission in its 254th report. This came in 2015. 255th report of 2015 recommended a neutral collegium a neutral collegium for appointment of EC. The second ARC, we know what is ARC? In its fourth report. Please read the fourth report and the eighth report. These two reports you should read, must. These 14 reports are there, just read the two. They are available on the Sarkari websites. Okay, in its fourth report, suggested a collegium for appointment of EC. For appointment of EC. Now, why? See, all reports are saying this, all commissions are saying this. What is the need for it? The need is, you understand that currently the appointment is done by the executive. Okay, the appointment is done by the executive, and EC is also a quasi-judicial body, right? It has to take pecuniary actions against the executive only. So there it cannot act. I told you EC never acts. Never it has given any harsh punishment to anyone. So in order to get rid of these the lacunas that are there, we need a collegium. So needed for, you write, needed for point number 1. Why we need collegium? Please write. EC is a quasi-judicial body and quasi-judicial body, and this function of EC, gets severely compromised because the appointment depends on the executive. Second, you write EC is appointed by the executive. which makes it a branch of executive. Which makes it a branch of executive, and it defeats the very purpose of the institution. Okay, got it? So what are the issues involved here? Why is there any kind of can we expect a backlash against collegium? There is no committee for any constitutional office. Okay, just try to understand, there is no committee which recommends to any constitutional office. They do it for statutory bodies. So if EC has to be appointed through a committee, why not CAG? Why not UPSC? Okay, why not others? NCSC, all of them should be then through it. So again, where are we going to stop? Like, are we doing it the same thing for the constitutional bodies and for the statutory bodies? So it will not stop anywhere. It will just go on that. Then you will have another committee, then you have another committee, then 11 constitutional bodies, you will have 11 constitutional committees plus 10 to 12 non-statutory committees. So this will increase the workload on the executive as well as the legislature. Instead of downsizing, it will have a very bulky form. The appointments will become very cumbersome. Okay. And what would happen? The key post will remain vacant. The key post will remain vacant because at times, now these committees are also, these selection committees will also be filled. Like we have an example that leader of opposition will be there. So there is no leader of opposition for the past two Lok Sabha. So now the act has been changed that the single largest opposition party, leader of the single largest opposition party will sit on that panel. So all these things require time and effort. You're getting it? So what would happen? A different type of problem with demands. Change the panel, write it.
Sir, I think there is a counter argument to this. Election Commission stands on a different pedestal when compared to other constitutional bodies because the very essence of democracy lies in free and fair elections. So that being the paramount requirement of a good democracy.
No.
Election
All
Commission
other are
stands on
same. All are same. You cannot say that CAG work is less important than EC or UPSC work or NC. Democracy, what? Democracy is not just about periodic elections. Who will take care of the marginalized?
Yes, sir.
Then that is it. So do not say this the same thing because there are other constitutional office. How do you rank the importance of one constitutional office more than the other? Don't do that.
Because when there are no free and fair elections,
फालतू जबरदस्ती का argument है. Instead of free and fair elections, what about the accountability? Who will check the public exchequer? CAG will. Now who is appointing the CAG? Who will take care of the merit system? The UPSC will. Who will take care of the marginalized? The NCSC will.
Precedes free and fair elections.
No. Says who? How does it precede?
I'm sorry.
So what? It depends democracy. तो one optional pol science नहीं है ना, right? जिसका है वो तो बताओ. Political democracy नहीं होता है ना, social economic भी होता है. Okay.
Political democracy, this is hard to achieve.
No, you are wrong here. You are wrong here. Read what Ambedkar has said on these things. तुमको क्या दिक्कत है? Change the pen and write. There is no committee. There is no committee which appoints any constitutional body. So similar demands can be raised about other institutions also. Committees exist for statutory positions. and not for constitutional appointments. The decision for the appointment of EC is with the executive and the legislature. Even judiciary, फट से जो पिटिशन एक्सेप्ट कर लिया कोर्ट ने, it's not 100% correct. Even judiciary, how does judiciary interpret a law? बताओ.
using article 368 plus 5.
रही वो तो एक पर्टिकुलर हो गया ना, थ्रू द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन ओनली. Any law, whether right or wrong, is upon the interpretation of the constitution. तो है ना 324 आर्टिकल, क्या कह रहा है? पार्लियामेंट will appoint. Why is judiciary poking its nose there? Okay, so write this. Even judiciary interprets a law according to the constitution. So an overreach by judiciary can shake the delicate balance of power. Okay, जब कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन कह रहा है कि भाई पार्लियामेंट विल पास अ लॉ, will shake the delicate balance of power. Are you getting it or not? जिसका जो काम है करने दो. The problem here is that executive ने relent कर दिया बहुत ज़्यादा. Right thing that should happen here, continue and write. Parliament must discuss and debate the independence of EC. And then pass the law. It should work towards a mechanism. It should work towards a mechanism to ensure that capable people are appointed in the EC. Okay, this is how you should write this thing. Got it? Now, one last thing that is about CAG. I'm just explaining it to you. Listen carefully and what are the problems that the CAG has. CAG is the Comptroller and Auditor General. क्या मतलब हुआ इसका?
What the funds that should flow will be controlled by that office and also audited if they are spent properly or not.
What is proper spending?
Avoiding misappropriation.
The purpose for which the expense was meant to happen. This is the only work for the CAG. The purpose for which the fund was spent, was it spent for that very purpose or not? It has to ensure it in its report. Now, CAG in India is not a comptroller. The British CAG is. Which means that CAG is not going to tell whether the fund should be used there or not. The Parliament will decide that. Parliament has the control on government spending money from the CFI. So any public money, okay, public money means government is spending that money. Any public money expenditure happens, CAG can come there. So it can audit the reports of the government of India, of the government of states, of any PSU, or anything that the president would ask the CAG to do. So the nature of job is of a post-mortem. The expenditure has happened, now comes the CAG. It only ensures that the intended expense was the same thing which the government said in the legislature. Okay, it does not go into the merit of that expense, whether that was required or it was not required. This is not the work of the CAG. Are you getting it? Now, the question that is raised here, that can it prevent any misuse of funds? The answer would be no, because it is the sole work of the parliament. Parliament has a public account committee. Yes, CAG and public account committee can sit and work together to ensure that financial propriety is correct. Okay. Now, another thing that is felt here of late in regarding the CAG, that other CAGs, now who gets appointed at the CAG? If you read the eligibility criteria, it is something very vague. Vague as in there is no prescribed qualification for the CAG. There is no prescribed qualification. Only thing it says that just a minute. Again, appointed by the president, term is for 6 years, will resign writing to the president, will send reports to the president, who will place it in the parliament. There is no eligibility criteria. Article 148 does not mention any eligibility criteria for the CAG. Heard about Shashikant Das? Shaktikant Das? Shashikant Das was the CAG. You know who was he? An IAS who had a history optional. Now, how will he use his optional or his domain knowledge in the office of CAG? I'm understanding it. So, because there is no such prescribed qualification, now British CAG must be having experience of 10 years of accounts. American CAG must be having 15 years experience. यहाँ history पढ़ के IAS में रह के CAG बन रहा है. You see that because we don't have an objective criteria, executive is appointing anyone and everyone. Okay, so इसीलिए विनोद राय, I hope I told you about this guy Vinod Rai. CAG Vinod Rai, heard of him? Vinod Rai was the CAG when Dr. Manmohan Singh was Prime Minister, and his reports used to rock the parliament. It started with Commonwealth Games. 70,000 crore misappropriation was there. Then there was this 2G allocation, 1,76,000 crore. Now, Daridhi Maran, A. Raja, Karimoji, they went to jail in 2G case. So there was many such reports where CAG highlighted some financial impropriety has happened. Colgate scam was there. So all these reports were highlighted by the CAG reports. Okay, it was Vinod Rai who was the CAG at that time, and it is said he's the one guy who brought Congress to its knees. Every month there was a CAG report. Opposition used to create a ruckus in the parliament. The press was there, and the situation became. It started with 2010, the Commonwealth Games. Then peaked with 2G and Colgate scam. Then every month we were having some scam or the other happening in the CAG report. Now, the economic survey of 2013 has used the term policy paralysis. So what was that policy paralysis? That the bureaucrats were not willing to sign a paper. They were like, maybe the minister has done something wrong and I'll be jailed. So they were hesitant of getting the files moved. Now that this policy paralysis resulted in what is called no work happening. And the capital flight started from India. The people who had put their monies, the FDIs and the FIIs. Now, why would anyone put money in your country when you are not doing work? So they tried to withdraw their money. So India was hailed as the favorite investment destination, but because of these huge corruption cases and all this policy paralysis happening, people were unwilling to invest in India. So that is why CAG Binod Rai reports were very, very important, and the environment against the incumbent Congress government were initially created by those reports. Are you getting it? See how this constitutional office could actually sink the government. Congress was reduced to 44 seats in 2014. Of course, there were political factors also, the advent of Narendra Modi and the BJP, all that being there. But in 2010, there was nothing like that. In 2010, Modi was just a chief minister, and BJP was a party which was struggling to convey its core ideas to the electorate. CAG made that platform, the reports made that platform, which ensured that the incumbent government goes. Are you getting it? It created, imagine 1,76,000, the union ministers going to jail. A Raja was union telecom minister. Dhanwantari Man was there. Kanimoji was there. So these people went to jail. Okay. How? Through the CAG reports. It was tabled in the parliament, and when it was discussed, it was discovered that there is so much financial irregularity has been there. So you see what these constitutional officers can do. So Binod Rai himself has said something regarding the improvement of the work of CAG, that these things need to be done. Binod Rai today, he is retired, 6 years tenure he retired. Now he's heading some international accountant body. He's a very respected name in the world right now, Mr. Binod Rai. He also was involved for a very brief period with the BCCI. So he has recommended something, please write about it. The ex-CAG, change the pen and write, the ex-CAG Binod Rai has recommended some measures for the improvement in working of the office of CAG. The improvement in working for the office of CAG, right, point wise. To bring all PPP project, public-private partnership, all PPP project, that is public-private partnership, the PRI's accounts, Panchayati Raj institutions, and the government funded societies within the ambit of CAG. Within the ambit of CAG. मतलब
Audit all these accounts.
पंचायत का भी ला दो, सारे पीपीपी का ला दो, और कितने भी गवर्नमेंट अकाउंट्स है, प्लीज ब्रिंग इट हियर. Second point, the CAG Act is of 1971. The CAG Act of 1971 should be amended to make it relevant, you right, to make it relevant with the changing need of administration. Third thing that Binod Rai said, CAG should be selected through a collegium. Okay. Now change the para. What else can be done apart from what Vinod Rai has said? CAG needs to change its audit mechanisms. As there are rapid changes happening in the government and public funding. The CAG came up with the big data management policy in 2016. And also established a center for data management and analytics in New Delhi. This is a welcome step. ये सब करे, बिग डेटा आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस पर काम करे, जो कि कर रहा है, एस्टेब्लिश कर दिया है और काम चल रहा है वहां पर. CAG also hosted the Commonwealth Auditor General Conference in 2017. which helped in building partnership among the Commonwealth countries related to public audit. एक और बढ़िया काम इन्होंने किया था, they audited UN accounts. Yes, UNO account, UNO invited, so the Indian CAG said, give it to us. UN said, okay, please do it, and they did it. So entire world was like, wow, and UN was very happy. So UN praised the Indian CAG that see how capable people they are. 1718 only. So they were praising it, and people in India were like, देखो हमारे पास भी ऐसे लोग हैं. Write this. CAG audited the UN accounts, which reflected the competence and credibility of the Indian CAG. तो आता तो बहुत कुछ है, कर पाते हैं कि नहीं, that is the challenge here. And credibility of the Indian CAG. Is it okay? So almost all we have done here also. Now comparative constitution is left. अच्छा, RPA तो छोटा सा है, वो तो और छोटा है.
Some cases involved with RPA, like some
What cases?
I don't know, but
there are few cases where people have been convicts हुए हैं, तो उन्हीं को डालेंगे और क्या, वही एग्जांपल है भी.
convicted and any changes further needed.
है थोड़ी चीजें हैं जो देख लेंगे। पहले तो आरपीए है और क्या बोला, एंटी डिफेक्शन है, और तो नहीं कुछ बच रहा है।
सर पंचायती राज।
पंचायत नहीं हुआ है। हाँ, मीन्स पंचायत एंड म्युनिसिपैलिटीज बोथ दे आर लेफ्ट। ओके, so we have comparative constitutions, panchayat, municipalities, anti defection and RPA. Four topics, right? Tomorrow we are meeting for sure. कल भी 3-4 घंटे क्लास होगी. I won't be able to take long class today also. I'm not in the best of my physical condition, but थोड़ा तो कर सकते हैं ना, फिर बाकी जो बचेगा वो कल कर लेते हैं. So let us start, try to finish the, or let us start with comparative constitutions. Regarding RPA and the panchayat and the municipalities and the anti-defection, of course we'll complete it. मैं क्लास में सारा समझा तो दूंगा आपको, मे बी सारा आपको लिखा ना पाऊँ. What if I send my notes, will that be all right? मैं लिख के भेज दूं, चलेगा? स्कैन करके, will that be all right? तो अभी कंपैरेटिव लिख लो, बिकॉज इसमें समझना और लिखना दोनों ही है, ये कहीं है भी नहीं किसी किताब में. राइट अबाउट द कंपैरेटिव कॉन्स्टिट्यूशंस. Let us start with the American one. Came into force in 1789. Came into force in 1789. It has 12 pages. A preamble. A preamble. 7 articles. कितना आसान होगा ना वहाँ का एग्जाम. And you don't know, अभी पढ़ते हैं. And 27 amendments.
27 amendments.
नहीं, ब्रिटेन में तो है ही नहीं रिटर्न, फिर तो तुम लोग को लगेगा ब्रिटेन चले जाए. राइट, डम पीपल. आगे लिखो. द एक्चुअल वर्किंग ऑफ कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन सिस्टम. The actual working of constitutional system in US includes the statutes of the Congress. Statute समझते हो ना, statutes of Congress and presidential orders. तो ये दोनों भी पढ़ना पड़ता है. Presidential orders to give practical form to these statutes. कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में 27 अमेंडमेंट है, 7 आर्टिकल है, बट उसकी वर्किंग बहुत बाहर तक है. और भी कुछ है, अगले पॉइंट में लिखो. Judiciary's decision interpreting constitution through judicial review. Okay, through judicial review. And the last one, the political conventions. The political conventions, for example, decisions taken by president's cabinet. अब आया समझ में? President's cabinet. Have you understood it? So all these things together kind of comprise the American constitutional system. It is not as easy and simple as you thought. Change the para. American Constitution is क्या है? Rigid है, flexible है? Rigid one. Which can be amended only through a special process. Special process. See, ordinary laws can be easily made there. That president can do, but not the constitutional amendment. How? Write the one. दो तरीके से होता है. First, 2/3 votes of both houses of Congress. Ratified by 3/4 state legislatures. Three-fourth of state legislatures. So 50 states, 3/4 would be 38 states within 7 years. Within 7 years, write this. Within 7 years. What is the process? That 2/3 votes have to be there in House of Representatives and Senate. This together becomes Congress. Got it? कितना चाहिए? 2 houses. अपने यहाँ है ना लोकसभा राज्यसभा. They have House of Representative and their upper house is called Senate. तो इसमें कितना चाहिए आपको? 2/3. Then you go to the states. There are 50 states. 3/4, 38 within 7 years. Isn't it tough? Within the period of 7 years, the states have to do it. Okay. दूसरा भी एक तरीका है. Write the second one. Alternatively, amendment can be proposed. Amendment can be proposed by a constitutional convention. A constitutional convention called by the Congress. On the petition of two-thirds of the states. So states themselves will say, how many? 2/3, 34 by 50, and it should be ratified. It should be ratified by 3/4 of total states. Ratified by 3/4 of total states. Tough है, easy है?
Too tough.
Which one is more tough, first or second? Both look equally tough. Okay, that is why only 27 amendment in the last 200 years. Correct? 200 plus years, in fact. So we see how it is functioning, how it is going, and how it's a federal constitution, right? American Constitution is a federal. You know the number of states there? 50 states are there, plus there is one district, Columbia. "50 states plus one district, Columbia." This is how they do it. And residuary powers, write this, residuary powers are with the state. Residuary powers are with the states. each state has its own constitution. Each state has its own constitution, an elected legislature, and a court. And the court. Okay. So this is how the federal structure of US is.
Like our people are called MLAs who are of state legislatures. What are those people called?
They are also called not MLAs, they are called representatives, because every state there has a house of representative. Okay.
Even every house has a house of Senate also.
No, Senate nahi hai. Senate ऊपर ही है बस. And every state has fixed number in the Senate. It started with 2, today it has changed. Now change the pen and write. President is the both head of the state and the government. How is the election happening in US? Do you know it?
The president is selected by an electoral college.
What is that electoral college?
That electoral college consists of state legislature
Yes.
and Senator's House and House of Representatives.
Yes. So 3 of them come together, they form electoral college, and the electoral college elects the president. Okay. So write this. President is elected by an electoral college. कितने दिन? Duration?
4 years.
For 4 years. See what is happening in US right now. How many cases are coming there? Total. I saw that what Biden said about Russia. That small intrusion might happen in Ukraine. So he kind of justified it.
Biden justified it.
He said that Russia can go for a small intrusion in Ukraine. He downplayed it actually. You see how this guy is behaving. This Sleepy Joe is actually a total nut. This will, embolden China. China might do the same thing with Taiwan. This may happen. So write this, elected for 4 years. We'll see it. People do vote. For 4 years, he can be removed. He can be removed by Congress only through impeachment for a grave constitutional act, for a grave unconstitutional act. See, people decide who will go there in the electoral college. Okay, the members are there, the state legislature is there, the House of Representatives is there, the Senate is there. So these people are again kind of voted upon that who will go into the electoral college. Then that electoral college decide who will be the president. So if you want a Republican president in electoral college, you need to have more Republicans. If you have more Democrats, you will have a Democrat president. Got it? This is how it works. So yes, people vote for the electoral college. And they know, they very well know that our members are there, so our president is coming. Impeachment, you saw any president that you can recall who was impeached there? Trump impeach हो गया.
Impeachment चला ना सर.
चलने से क्या हुआ? हुआ किसका था? Heard of Bill Clinton? He was impeached. Why? Why was that impeachment brought against Bill Clinton? Heard of it? नहीं पता. Seriously, आप लोग नहीं जानते हो? Bill Clinton had physical relationship with one of the White House employee. Her name was Monica Lewinsky. So earlier he denied, no, she is lying, she's trying to frame me, this, that. Now in court, she produced those clothes which had semen of Bill Clinton. And that was accepted as a proof. Bill Clinton is husband of Hillary Clinton. So all things that Donald Trump was accused of, Bill Clinton has done it. Okay, understanding it. ट्रम्प पे तो एक्यूजेशन लगा था ना कि ही इज दिस ही इज दैट. क्लिंटन ने तो किया है सब, वो भी प्रेसिडेंट रहते हुए व्हाइट हाउस में. Okay, the courts accepted it. Now write further. President Cabinet is an advisory body and has non-elected departmental secretaries. Underline this, which means they are not part of Congress, unlike India. मिनिस्टर एमपी होता है ना, वहां नहीं है. Non-elected departmental secretaries selected and appointed by the president. Appointed by the president and can be removed anytime by the president. So cabinet कौन है, मिनिस्टर कौन है, नॉन इलेक्टेड डिपार्टमेंटल सेक्रेटरी है, कोई एमपी नहीं है. Are you understanding it? How different it is? Next you write, president and his secretaries are not responsible to the Congress. President cannot dissolve House of Representatives. Here the parliament can be dissolved if the PM says so. President cannot dissolve the House of Representatives. Next you write separation of power. Separation of power. Article 1. All legislative powers with the Congress. Article 2. All executive powers with the president. Article 3. All judicial powers with one Supreme Court. And in such inferior courts,
Power with one court.
one Supreme Court, and in such inferior courts, as Congress from time to time decide. Okay. Now next you write checks and balance. President can veto the bills passed by the Congress. Next, Senate confirms the higher appointments and international treaties by the president. Are you understanding this line? Higher appointment and international treaties by the president. मतलब
For example, if US president wants to get into something called Quad or something called APUS.
When this nuclear deal with India was done, they had to change Article 1, 2, and 3 of the original act. It was called HYDE Act, HYDE, because India is the non-signatory country to NPT and CTPT, and US was trying to have a nuclear deal. So they had to change article. That deal is also called 1, 2, 3 deal, because these articles were changed. The sections were amended. Who did that? The Congress did that. Okay. And if president wants to appoint a judge, then again the Congress will do that. President wants to appoint a special envoy to Afghanistan, the Congress will do that. Okay. Kya hai Ravi? Next you write, president appoints judges with consent of Senate. So Rajya Sabha will come there. Senate. Next, Congress decides the appellate jurisdiction of judiciary. Next, you write Supreme Court can declare the Congress laws and presidential orders as ultra vires. Ultra vires matlab unconstitutional. The statutes of Congress and state legislatures must conform to the Constitution. Else they will become ultra vires. Okay. Change the para. US Constitution is the first constitution to have Bill of Rights. To have Bill of Rights. No person can be deprived of liberty and property without a due process. Congress is bicameral. Senate and House of Representatives. Senate and House of Representatives. It has 435 members. Two-year term. And Senate has 100 members, 6 years term. It has changed and again it has changed. States did protest about it, so again it has come back to 2 age. No, to ही है फिर net is already 2, but in the meanwhile some changes did happen. अभी नहीं हुआ है. So 100 for 6 years term. Senate is more powerful.
Unlike Rajya Sabha, for Senate also direct elections happen.
No, they are nominated.
They're nominated.
Yes, Rajya Sabha is also nominated.
But elected representatives.
No, nothing like that. They are nominated by the states.
Yeah.
No voting happens for Senate. The people have nominated these people. People themselves have nominated these people. Which two people are coming from the state of New Jersey? The people will decide. Not everything happens through election. It's not like they are going to poll for it. They decide amongst. There are other things also. There are conventions. There are opinion polls that are selected. Okay, this is how it is done. It's no direct election happens there. Now, what else happens here? Please write election. The electoral college. The electoral college has presidential electors. Has presidential electors who are directly elected. Who are directly elected by people of all states. This is the only direct election that happens there. People of all states. The number of presidential electors the number of presidential elector in each state is equal to number of its members in the Congress, each house. ये लाइन समझ में आ रही है?
The number of members in the
Congress in each house.
That's states respective Congress.
हाँ, state Congress में दोनों है ना, representative and senate दोनों है. So what are you saying? Number of presidential elections in each state is same as the number of members in the Congress. Okay. So every state sends members to the Senate, to each, and also sends to the House of Representatives. Okay. Now these numbers will be same as number of presidential electors from each state. Whatever this and this be, same thing will apply here, so that it becomes more representative. Got it? Sure. Then write. It will have as many members as the total strength of Congress. So when we are saying this, that this will be equal to every member of Senate and every member of House. This is what the strength of Congress is. So presidential electors will be same as the members of Congress, right? Now you write further. 3 extra votes are given to Colombia because it's not a state, it's a district. 3 extra votes are given to Colombia. कितना हो जाता है मालूम है? कितना था कांग्रेस हाउस ऑफ रिप्रेजेंटेटिव देखो 435 plus 100 plus 3.
538.
You need this much to become the president. You need this much to become the president. Write it.
तो इसमें स्टेट लेजिस्लेचर को कोई लेना देना नहीं है.
प्रेसिडेंशियल इलेक्टरल लिस्ट बनाने में थोड़ा बहुत लेना देना है, ज्यादा कुछ नहीं है. इलेक्टरल लिस्ट सिलेक्ट करने में थोड़ा बहुत लेना देना है, वो भी इन्फ्लुएंस पे आता है. इट्स नॉट लाइक दे गो एंड वोट डायरेक्टली. ओके, राइट द नंबर्स क्विकली. So what is the need of Congress here? बताओ. जब इलेक्शन प्रेसिडेंशियल इलेक्टर से होना है तो कांग्रेस का क्या जरूरत है?
लेजिस्लेटिव लॉज बनाने का.
अब देखो कितना स्ट्रिक्ट सेपरेशन ऑफ पावर है. That how does one become president of USA? When you get 270 numbers from your presidential electors. Who are these presidential electors? They elect the president. How do they elect the president? Their number is this, same as the strength of Congress. Congress has 2 houses, Senate and House of Representatives. इनके अपने अलग इलेक्शंस होते हैं. सेनेट का तो नहीं होता है, रिप्रेजेंटेटिव्स का होता है. Now what happens here? Presidential electors election happens, people vote, and whichever party has the maximum seats in presidential elections, they get their own president. तो ये आप देखो प्रेसिडेंट को एग्जीक्यूटिव को इलेक्ट किया जा रहा है. Once that president is elected, the highest executive, then they keep a check on him. Then legislature comes into force. Are you getting it? अच्छा, mostly they are outside each other. President के कुछ ही चीजों पे legislature अपनी मुहर लगाता है. They only authenticate few things of the president, like appointment to judiciary and some higher appointments that it makes. The laws are not passed by the Congress. Okay, president takes the decisions on his own. His cabinet is not people from Congress. Okay, so they have been elected. President has been elected. He can choose his cabinet, and the Congress will keep a tab on this. That is it. ये system है वहाँ पर.
So that CSHR, this is of state legislatures, right?
What?
That you've drawn now, right?
No, this is Congress.
Okay.
This is Senate. This is House of Representatives. इसमें state कहाँ आ रहा है? Where is the state here? Right further. Members of Electoral College are not members of Congress. Members of Electoral College are not members of Congress. तो ये एक अलग independent voting चलती है इनके यहाँ. An electoral college is dissolved. Electoral college is dissolved after the president is elected. आई बात समझ में?
So two different elections will happen. One
For presidential election, just one election will happen. For House of Representative, it keeps on happening.
2 years, 6 years.
States में होता है वो. तो states का कितना रोल है? इतना ही रोल है कि House of Representatives के बराबर है वो. And same number will be reflected in the presidential electorate. That is it. Okay, so whatever it is older than the Indian one. It has been working for all these times. Different countries, different systems. That's it. Got it? अब इसमें लिखो, अब मान लो no candidate gets 270 then. ऐसा हुआ है 3 बार. What if no government candidate gets 270? Write this. If no candidate gets 270, then समझ रहे हो? The House of Representatives, then the House of Representatives elect president among the 3 candidates securing highest votes. Securing highest votes. 1876 के बाद ऐसा नहीं हुआ. It happened in 1800, in 1824, and in 1876. That's it. 3 बार हुआ है, very less. Now, who can be the president? What is the eligibility? Born मतलब? So they are called naturalized citizens. They cannot become. So write about the eligibility. Natural born citizens, not naturalized citizen. Must be 35 years of age and resident of USA for 14 years and resident of USA for 14 years. His terms start कब? His term starts on 4th January. It is the 4th January when the president takes oath. Every year, same. उसके पहले क्या होता है? President elect रहते हैं. They are called president elect. Okay. Now, impeachment. Impeachment. Treason. Treason, you know, गद्दारी देश से. Bribery. Treason, bribery. TRE. Treason, bribery. बट क्लिंटन तो दोनों में से कुछ नहीं किया था बेचारा. तो लिख दो एक्सेट्रा. That was not an act of treason. Come on. It was consensual sex between 2 grown-up people, which the girl used it to her advantage. सीधा किसको हनी ट्रैप किया? अमेरिकन प्रेसिडेंट को. कपड़े भी दिखा दिए कोर्ट में ले जाके. उसका फोरेंसिक जांच हुआ था. When it was proved that this liquid came from him, then all these things started. सोचो कितना गंदा फंसाया गया था क्लिंटन को. Next you write House of Representatives starts proceedings by majority vote. Now who will start it? The elected House of Representatives. What will Senate do? The Senate will try the case. सेनेट फिर ट्रिब्यूनल की तरह एक्ट करता है. वहीं क्लिंटन गए थे, वहां पे सेनेट एक जूरी बन जाएगा. ओके. रिप्रेजेंटेटिव्स हाउस विल स्टार्ट इट कि मोशन लाया गया, मोशन पास हुआ, देन it goes to the Senate, which acts as a tribunal when the president is to be impeached. Okay, so write this. It acts as a tribunal which is presided over which is presided over by the Chief Justice of Supreme Court. Chief Justice of Supreme Court. How's it? The American one? यहाँ से अच्छा है बुरा है? तुम लोग को पहली बार सुन के अजीब लगेगा, because all your time you have read this one. Got it? So, यही सब चीजें आ सकती है आपके एग्जाम में कि how is it different? वो तो एनसीईआरटी का क्वेश्चन है. ऐसे तो फिर सेकुलरिज्म पर भी आया हुआ है. व्हाट कैन फ्रांस लर्न फ्रॉम इंडियन सेकुलरिज्म? हाँ, तो the thing is that it's not given anywhere, but you need read these things many times. That is it. Equality अब आ सकता है we the people. दोनों का preamble शुरू होता है we the people से. Same, there you need to go for the same thing, the generalized things that yes, democracy, rule of law, giving dignity to the people. Now see, one thing you have written here, that no one can be deprived of liberty and property. इंडिया में लॉ ऐसा नहीं कहता है. यहाँ तो प्रॉपर्टी है ही नहीं सबके पास. Okay, so property again remains a fundamental right there, and it cannot be done away except for a procedure established by law. So something India में क्या है? Liberty and life. Okay, वहाँ पे अलग है. So different country, different value system, different set of people, they have their own constitution, which is serving them well. For past almost 200 years it's been. Okay, now come to the British. इनका और अजीब लगेगा क्योंकि कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन है ही नहीं लिखा हुआ. British Constitution, it is called the mother of the Constitution. कर लेते हैं, फिर ब्रेक ही ले लेंगे. I'll not take class after this. बाकी कल करेंगे. इसको लिख लो. British Constitution, mother of the Constitution. England and Wales were united in 1535. Scotland joined them in 1707, and Northern Ireland in 1921. 1707, the year Aurangzeb died, and Northern Ireland in 1921. इंग्लैंड का यूनिफिकेशन देख लिया कैसे हुआ है धीरे धीरे करके. ब्रिटिश कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन, नॉर्थ आयरलैंड अभी लिखा ना. हाँ क्या? अरे IRELAND, it became a part in. So you see how this is what the UK is. Now write British Constitution is a blend of monarchy, aristocracy, and democracy. Aristocracy and democracy. What are the meaning of these three words? Batao. What is aristocracy? Good. Ruled by the learned people. इसको नींद में भी याद है देखो. Learned people मतलब nobles who are in the good book of king. Still we have a king there. Queen का queen है, मरेगी तब तो king बनेगा. 90-year-old still living. Hmm? Actually, he's saying they drink all the rich wines and scotch. That enhances life. How do you know that? That's why Elizabeth is living for so long, right? How did King James die then? उसकी बीवी नहीं दी होगी पति को, right? She must have drank his share. She's a cunning woman. Right. Right. There's this photo where Prime Minister Modi was meeting her. Then Modi turned like this. It was written Titanic wali hai na? Right. Unwritten constitution. It is an evolved one, not enacted one. Evolved one, not enacted one. मतलब conventions, charters, judgments वहां से आता है constitution उनका. Right. Further, it is a product of history and conventions. Product of history and conventions. What are conventions? These are like unwritten principles of political practice. Write this line. Unwritten principles of political practice and customary principles. And customary principles which are backed by tradition and public opinion. ये चीज समझ में आई सबके? Did you understand this line? Public opinion. Bhuvishri, did you understand? Public opinion and tradition. What?
Even some traditions they evolve and the public board supported those traditions and evolved
and it is endorsed by the people. सबसे बड़ी बात. Public opinion is holding these traditions very dear. So have you seen that Westminster kind of model? So you see there the royal guards are there. The Queen is, Queen is a butt of joke in England, but they admire the Queen a lot. Okay, if the royal family says something, public is more than willing to do that. When they see royal family, they are like so keen, like, oh my, the king has come, the prince has come. Saw that prince and that daughter-in-law किसके शो में आई थी? Oprah Winfrey show, right? So how she said things which created a lot of political turmoil in England. Okay, that because I belong to the royal family, that's why I was subjected to this and this, is what she said, and never gave her privilege. See the hypocrisy. Next you write, एक तो क्या है, convention से आता है. Convention, you all have understood what is convention? Something which has been happening there since 16th century. And it has been followed like that, and people see England is a homogeneous country. हमारी तरह नहीं है. Okay, not diversity like India. So these people have their sacrosanct practices for last so many years. So they say yes, we'll still have it. The second thing that is there is, it is called great charters. ये क्या होता है? लिखो great charters. These are the constitutional charters which define powers of the crown, powers of the crown and liberties of the citizen. क्या आ रहा है दिमाग में?
Which
Define powers of crown and liberties of the citizen. Of course, monarch तो हो ही गया ना, power of crown. So which was the first document that talked about Magna Carta? Magna Carta came in 1215. 1000 साल आगे चले गए तुम. 1215 it came, and it is the first written document where the king says that these are your inalienable right. I'm not going to take it. So it is a restriction on the powers of king, and it is giving some political rights to the people. Right? So these are called great charters. It starts with, right, Magna Carta, 1215. Petitions of Right, 1628. Petition of Rights, 1628. And Bill of Rights, 1689. 1628 and Bill of Rights, 1689. So these were some great documents. They are called great charters. जहाँ पर crown को भी बताया गया कि what you can do and what citizens will get. Eventually, it started with Magna Carta, ended with this 1689 document, Bills of Rights is called. So कितने हो गए forms? शुरू कहाँ से किया था? Conventions and great charters. Third, you write statutes. Statutes. You know what is statutes?
laws passed by the legislature.
Parliament जो वहाँ law pass करती है. Okay, so laws passed by the parliament would be here. Next, common laws. What is common law? What do you call common law? Made by the judges. Made by the judges. And then there is something called this legal commentary. Legal commentary. Books by constitutional experts. इसका नाम सुने थे ना?
A.V. Dicey.
हाँ. A.V. Dicey's Law of the Constitution. He wrote this book. A.V. Dicey's Law of Constitution. Then there is Bagehot. He also wrote a very this thick book it is. He wrote English Constitution. So there are legal commentaries.
So common law.
जज ने जो बोल दिया वो कॉमन लॉ हो गया.
Court judge.
हाँ तो और कौन है
Judicial
जज?
legislation करेगा.
What? Whatever the court said there, that becomes common law. So judiciary is saying something. Then you have all these legal documents. ये डाइसी ने कब लिखा था? 16th century में लिखा था. He wrote it in 18th century. So these two books are there, which are called legal. This legal commentaries. There is common law. There is great charters. जो बड़े-बड़े documents हुए थे between the king and the subject. Then there is convention. Convention, you know, and then you have that unwritten practice. तो ऐसा नहीं कि unwritten है, because these things lead to many coherent things happening. That becomes the English Constitution. You don't have to write that. An intermix of all these factors results in what is called the English Constitution, and no one is having other opinion on these things. So if we say that A.V. Dicey has given 3 dimensions to rule of law, do you know that the third one does not apply in India?
Yes.
But no one in England would say that these 3 things are not a part of rule of law. Okay, so there is no other opinion regarding any such things. I told you, homogeneous people, they more or less agree on these things. Okay, this is how the British Constitution comes. Now, is it flexible or rigid? Why?
Yeah. Parliamentary supremacy.
That is right, but how is the Constitution flexible? Then,
Then in these volumes of books, they can find any provision that will allow the laws to that will allow them to make laws in their favor. So there are
no,
so
no, no,
many
no, no,
provisions
no.
out of which they can dig
नहीं
something
भाई,
out.
नहीं, नहीं, नहीं.
They come out from the traditional values, so how can they be flexible? They are fixed.
अभी तो बोला flexible है. नहीं, the Constitution is flexible. Now tell me why. There is no difference between a constitutional law and an ordinary law. Isn't it flexibility? All the parliament needs to do is to pass a law. Is there a difference? Act are constitutional laws, unlike India. There is no difference between a constitutional law and an ordinary law because there is no written constitution. So what do you amend when there is nothing written there? You just bring a law. It is very easy for the parliament to bring a law. That's why it is flexible. Likho. Flexible and unitary. Flexible and unitary. There are no states there. Forget state governments. There are counties. Counties are like our municipalities. So either you have a London or small counties there. No kind of states are not there. So write this: parliament is supreme. It is sovereign actually. Parliament is sovereign. You know what he said? D. Lalonde said that British Parliament can do everything except make a boy a girl and make a girl a boy. Matlab, there is nothing that they cannot do. Okay, write about this quote of D. Lalonde: British Parliament can do everything except make a man a woman and a woman a man. I'm sure if he was living in these times, he would not have said this. तब जेंडर फ्लूइड नहीं होता था, रिजिड होता था. There is no provision of judicial review. पार्लियामेंट सोवरेन है तो जुडिशरी क्या करेगी? There is no provision of judicial review. It's a constitutional monarchy. A continued constitutional monarchy it is. How? Constitutional monarchy. You know what they say there? The king is dead. Long live the king. Matlab? Even if the king has died, the next king has appeared. So the king is dead, the new king should long live. This is what is said about the British Parliament. And regarding their British sovereignty of the Parliament, it said that the king is bound to sign his death warrant. If the Parliament passes a law which says king should be hanged, king will sign that also. Okay, so these are few very famous phrases regarding the British Constitution. Now write about the rule of law. What is the rule of law? Batao. First point. ठीक है, equality before law. इंडिया में है?
Equal protection.
इंडिया में है equality before law?
Yes, yes.
ठीक है. So write equality before law. Second, उसी का पार्ट है ना? No arbitrary powers. इंडिया में है?
Yes.
ठीक है. Third, which is not there in India,
Constitution is the result of the ordinary law of the land.
इसको ऐसे लिखो, primacy of the rights of the individual. It's not like constitution is the law of the land. Primacy of rights of the individual, which means that the constitution is the result of, see, Indian constitution exists for protecting the rights of the citizens, correct? British constitution is the result of rights of the citizens. Okay, right? Constitution is the result of rights of the individuals. Result of rights of the individuals as defined by the courts, rather than constitution being the source of, individual rights. In India, what is that? India mein constitution is the source of individual rights, but not in Britain. What happens in Britain? Constitution is a result of individual rights, not the source of rights of the individual. So source of right of the individual happens in India. Next, right, parliament is bicameral. House of Lords. This is world's oldest second chamber. 677 members. And most of them are hereditary lords. India में hereditary चलेगा? 677 members, mostly hereditary. Then you have House of Commons, 659 members. 677 and Commons 659. Divided between England, Wales, Scotland, and Northern Ireland. England, Wales, WALES, Scotland, and Northern Ireland. Got it? This is how they function. And there is one unique concept in England that is called shadow cabinet. So currently there are two parties, main party, the Conservatives and the Labour. The Conservatives are in power, so Labour Party prepares what is called a shadow cabinet, which will have a opposition PM, opposition finance minister, whatever policy they will bring, shadow cabinet will bring an alternate policy over it. Okay, this is called, they engage in what is called constructive criticism, that this is the problem that we have with your policy, here is our policy. Got it? So this is about the British Constitution, which is not actually a constitution, but it is an amalgamation of different things. There are charters, there are common laws, there are conventions are there, and public opinion agrees to these things. So a country like England can manage these things, not in India. Okay. Any question here?
Why shadow cabinet?
हुआ ही नहीं तो सक्सीड क्या होगा, तब देखेंगे सक्सीड करेगा कि नहीं. Why do you assume नहीं करेगा? हो सकता है कर भी जाए. It might succeed. And see, these systems work when your political system is very mature, when no one is pulling it from the 10 directions. You see, House of Lords is hereditary. Most of the lords are 7th, 8th generation lords, because their father, their grandfather, their great grandfather, their great great grandfather served in the House of Lords. Right? ये privilege है. English still are a privileged society. But then, given their economic development because of that colonial era and the small size, they have been able to accommodate everyone. Okay, so there are no kind of very wide fault lines in the English society. Of course, there are also poor people. There are also slums. Slum to Paris ke paas bhi hai. But then they are very few in numbers. Because of these things, they are able to bring these kinds of constitutional systems where people mostly say yes to these things. And if the British Parliament says something, even the courts cannot do anything.